Richard, you're like a bad penny. You can't stay away, mate. Welcome back.
That's me all over. That's me all over.
Thanks for coming back with us and things, really. We're going to talk about your projects that you've been doing for quite a long time now, the Children of London.
Yeah, well, it's more than a project. It's almost like a lifestyle, mate. Yeah, it's become a massive part of my life. It started off as a little idea, and it's grown and grown and grown into a big business, which is so. Yeah, I'm very excited to talk about it.
And so it's a yearly thing that you do, or is it? Obviously with COVID and everything else, did you have to stop during that time, or how does it all kind of change?
I'm going to talk about that as part of it, but yeah, it's become a yearly thing. It wasn't initially. Initially, it was a one-off project that I wanted to do just for fun. It's a book of images of children photographed in their favourite places in London. But there's a little bit more to it than that. It's a business as well, and it also raises money for charity. So it's a kind of a nice little combination of things. But initially, it was just a one-off project, and it went so well that Great Ormond Street, who are the charity that associated with it, asked me to do it again, and I kind of semi-reluctantly went, okay, yeah, I'll do that again. And it's grown and grown and grown, and now it's become a major part of my business.
Excellent. So we're not going to be seeing hundreds of images. What are we going to be seeing in this session? So
no, I've had to whittle them down. So what I'm going to do is that I've been doing this project now we're on the 14th book now for 14 years, since 2010, believe it or not. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how it came about and what the idea of it is, and then I'm going to show you some images from the books. I have charted it into the year, so and hopefully it'll show some progression. And so I'm going to show you the cover shot of each of the years from 2010 to 2022. And then a couple of images from each year. So I won't be talking at great length about the images, but hopefully it'll come together as a kind of a format, and it'll show you how the thing works and what it looks like.
And this is a real ingredient here for inspiration, I think, isn't it? For photographers or anybody who's going to be watching this, I think they're going to kind of come away with an inspiration that they can do something themselves. They just need to stop.
I really hope so, because I can't stress it enough. This project literally has changed my life. It is now a major part of my business, as well as something that I feel very fondly about, and something that I've taken a lot of creative and personal satisfaction from. It's been a fantastic journey, as they say on the talent shows. It's a journey, but it really has been a fantastic journey, and I've enjoyed it very much. And I hope that people can see that. I've written a couple of books also about how I did it, called Rich Photographer, Poor Photographer, which I'm going to talk to you about as well. So hopefully flog a few books if people are interested, and those will give you some ideas of how you could replicate something similar to this, and hopefully change your business as well.
Good. Just before we get into the Children of London, just give me a quick background to you, can you? So anybody who's not familiar with yourself, tell us a little bit about Richard.
So I've been a photographer pretty much all my life. I mean, I started out very early days in my 20s. Didn't go to college. Didn't do the college. Well, I went to art college, but I was kind of chucked out of art college because I realised that it actually involved doing some hard work, which I wasn't a fan of at the time. Went away, got a part-time job at an agency, a design agency. I don't know how I managed to wangle that, but I did somehow. And from that, I was then recommended to work with a photographer on a particular shoot. That photographer, a very nice chap called David, called Patrick, ended up employing me and became my kind of mentor. I guess I was very lucky in that respect at a fairly early age. Opened my first studio in Nottingham way back when, doing commercial stuff, advertising, and at that time it was mainly design more than advertising, so it was brochures and catalogues and whatever. Then moved to London, worked for shooting the Argos catalogue for a few years, and then got my first big advertising studio down in South London in Croydon. Started shooting advertising and became, during the 90s, I guess one of the best known advertising photographers in London, really. That soon spread around the world. I had, at that time, later on, I then had agents in New York, in LA, and in Europe, as well as an agent in London. I'm shooting back-to-back advertising and editorial shoots. And that's been what my kind of background was. In 2010, I set up Children of London as a response to, partly as a response to the 2008 credit crunch. In 2008, also it was my experience that the whole kind of advertising industry changed quite significantly. fees came down as access to photography became more and more readily available via photo libraries and via digital photography. I embraced digital photography I was one of the early uptakers of it, but it did cause a lot of problems, and it took a while for people to kind of, to react to it and to change their business to suit it. But that's what I did. I ended up shooting a lot less advertising and a lot less editorial, so I needed something else to kind of fill my time, and also wanted to. I think one of the things that was important to me, I was shooting a lot all over the world at that time, and I wanted to start to shoot in the UK. I had my third child, and I didn't want my relationship with my third child to be the same as my first two, which is they hardly ever saw me. So Children of London came out of that, and I developed an idea literally out of the ashes of that, and that's where I am today, basically. So I still shoot some commercial advertising stuff. I'm very much into my cars and motorbikes. I shoot a lot of cars and motorbikes as well, but I'm mainly known for shooting people for magazines and whatever. I write for Professional Photo magazine. I'm contributing editor. I've written several books, and I do seminars and talks and education events, which are fantastic fun.
At our age, it's great to see somebody with so much energy.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it, to have that? But I still love it. I do love it. I mean, it's been my life, and I loved every minute of it, and I still do.
Good. Richard, let's get into the Children of London, yeah?
Yeah, of course, I'd love to. Shall I take it over?
Yeah, please do. It's all yours.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I hope you enjoyed this little talk. We've already covered some of the points I wanted to cover. Children of London. So these are my contact points. I encourage people, feel free, contact me. I've got no problem with it at all. I'm not somebody who likes to hide myself under a bushel. If you want any tips, hints, or whatever, feel free to email me, text me, phone me, call me, whatever, not a problem. My Instagram is up there as well. Have a click into that. Take a photo of this screen. If you want to contact me, feel free. I'd enjoy that very much. So, Children of London. As I said, my kind of the pillars of what I do are charity, creativity, and childhood. I've already explained where the initial concept came from, but I wanted to change my life. I wanted to change the way that I functioned within the photography world, and change the balance of it. At that time, at one time I was doing almost exclusively advertising and editorial stuff. Fantastic fun, great, really enjoyed it. But I was aware of the fact that from a portraiture point of view, that I think the public was very badly served. There were far too many multicolored shoots on white backgrounds going on, which I've never been a fan of. And I feel, and I felt and still do feel, that the public don't think that there's any other option than that. They think that's all they can do. And the idea of the Children of London was to try to bring a higher quality and a higher standard of photography to the general public, and also hopefully make some money from it as a photographer, which I think is really important. In addition to that, I also feel very strongly about working for charities. I think as you get older and you make a bit of money, I think it's important to try to think about giving some of it back. So I devised a business plan that would enable me to make money for a worthy charity, to provide great creativity to members of the public, which I thought was a really important factor, but also provide an income for me and be a good, strong business. And that's how it came about. And you'll hopefully see how that plan develops. So the concept of the Children of London was quite simple, and still is quite simple. It hasn't changed at all over the years. First of all, parents apply. I have a website, which I'll show you later. Parents apply for their children to be photographed in their favourite London location. That's the basis of it. So that in itself is a lovely concept. I asked them to make a donation to Great Ormond Street Hospital as payment for their photo shoot. So they don't pay me for a shoot. There's no payment. There's no paywall there. They don't have to worry about that. And that works on many different levels. It enables people to have confidence in the photographer that they're shooting with. As I always put it, it sounds like a bit of a blunt way of putting it, but I think it's very important. If I come along and I smell a BO and I'm a rubbish photographer and I'm rude to them, what's the worst thing that's happened? They've given £100 to Great Ormond Street Hospital, and they've had a slightly odd meeting with the photographer. So from that point of view, it's easy. Obviously, I don't have BO. I'm not a horrible guy. I'm a very nice person and I'm a great photographer. So what they get from it hopefully is that, but we don't have people ringing us up and going, well, how much is the photo shoot and how much are the prints going to be? Because we don't have to have those awkward conversations, because what they're doing initially is just donating money to a great charity, and they're getting a photo shoot for that. It's explained to them in the promotional material that every child photograph will appear in a numbered limited edition book, with copies number 1, 2, and 3 being retained by the monarch. I have to say the monarch now. I'm saying Her Majesty the Queen for so long that it seems different now, because His Majesty the King will now get it. He gets number 1. Number 2 goes to the Prime Minister, and number 3 goes to the Mayor. The other copies of the book, there's only 500 copies produced. They're all limited in number. They're all hand-bound, hand-produced, and they are stunningly beautiful. They're about sort of, the book ends up being A3 to open up to A2 size. So it's a big book. It comes boxed with ribbons, and it's embossed. It's very beautiful. It's extremely beautifully produced, and it's a lovely thing to keep and have. And members of the public can purchase the other copies. Numbers 1, 2, and 3 go to those people, but the others are purchasable. After the shoot, I asked them if they'd like to attend a viewing where they can have an option to buy prints, etc., to display in their home, and that's how I justify the shoots to myself. Initially, I had a feeling that this would give us, a minimal income, and it would be a good thing. In fact, it turns out that we've got a major income from it. We get way more than the average portrait photographer in turnover from each viewing, and it's become a major part of it. So yeah, it's turned into a fantastic business. I now also employ freelance 3 other photographers who also shoot on the book for me. We shoot on average between, so it's myself and 3 other photographers. They're all independents. They don't work for me, but I'm very lucky in the fact I have a lot of contacts through the associations, and I'm captain of the World Photographic Cup team, so I get to meet a lot of other photographers, and I often invite other photographers to be part of the project. We've built a fantastic team, and so people out there get access to some of the best photographers in the UK, and as a result, they get some of the best photography on their walls, which is fantastic from that point of view. In 2010, I produced the first book, and it was a lovely thing. We had 52 applicants that year, and strangely enough, all the applicants on that year were successful, which is quite fun. Now they're not at all successful, I can tell you. We produced another one, and another, and another, and another, and another, and they kept on going. We now have over 1,000 applicants per year, every year, but we only choose around about 120 to 150 from those applicants. So it's quite difficult now to get into the book. But I hope you can see from those images there that the quality of the work we do is I think very high. In the past 13 years, I've photographed, worked out more than 2,000 children in total. We've made £3 million in revenue over that period, and we've just hit the mark of £100,000 raised for Great Ormond Street Hospital, which I'm very, very proud of. I always say I did not do this to get a knighthood. It isn't the primary reason for me doing it, but I do feel quite proud of having raised a lot of money for a fantastic cause. Great Ormond Street are a great organisation to work with. They've been fantastic supporters of the project, and it's important for any of you out there that want to do something similar to this. If you do work with a charity, make sure that you tick the I's and cross the T's, because it's very important for their point of view that they understand what you're doing. I made it very clear to Gosh right from the outset that this is a commercial project, and I'm donating the shoot fee to them to encourage people to sign up. And if people contact us and they mention anything about the charity, so they say, I want to be on the project because my son has been treated at Great Ormond Street, my assistant Jess has very clear instruction to make it very clear to them that this is a commercial project first and foremost. And whereas we appreciate their donation to Great Ormond Street, be aware that it's not a Great Ormond Street project. It's just important to be very clear about this thing, as the public need to be informed of what they're doing. I'm a very honest fellow, and I feel very strongly that that should be at the forefront of what you do. So obviously the whole thing is led by a website. We spent a lot of money on our website. Initially though, I built my first website myself, and it worked very, very well. As we raised more and more money and made more money from it, I now use an agency, and we've got a fantastic website. People are encouraged to go to the website where they sign up for the project. But obviously before that, they want to be sure that they're dealing with somebody that knows what they're doing. So it's got a lot of imagery in there from the book, from the past things. There's lots of different aspects to it. Everything points to the application page you see here, but there's also information there about Greater Ormond Street and also about me personally. So they want a little bit of biography about me, so they know who I am. I don't expect them to know who I am, so it's very important they get some background on that basis. And of course, as I mentioned before, we do have the association with Greater Ormond Street. It's interesting to note something else I'm proud of. That logo you see there was actually designed for us and is now the in aid of logo. So we were one of many businesses that approached them and said, we want to do something in aid of Greater Ormond Street. And they felt, as I do, that it's important for that to be separated from donations from projects that are run and led by Greater Ormond Street. So the in aid of logo was designed for us, but is now used by them in association with anybody that has a project that they want to work with them, which is quite a nice thing to have as your, as a something that's connected with the project. So yeah, the website's a very important part of what we do. So in 2018, this had gone so well that I decided to write a book about how you would start and promote yourself as a business within photography. My previous incarnations as an advertising and editorial photographer, I'd always had agents, but I was always quite a good self-promoter, and I think naturally I'd kind of promoted myself within that marketplace. When it came to Children of London, it was the first time I was ever dealing with the general public directly, and I found it quite a challenge. And so I developed marketing methods and techniques and sales methods. I also developed different work processes that enabled me to function on that way. I had to move across the VAT barrier, so there's a lot of instruction here about how you develop that and how you first step across the VAT barrier. Also, we talk about viewings. I have a big thing about viewings that are so important. I did a seminar last year which was very successful, where we reenacted how we do viewings. The viewing is such an important part of what we do, and there's many techniques involved in it. Many photographers that I mentor, one of the first things that I talk to them about is how to structure a viewing properly to ensure that they get the best from their work, that they sell the most, but also that their client gets a good experience as well. So the books themselves have all those aspects in them, and I encourage you hopefully to have a look at that. And if you'd like to buy them, you can do. I'm giving a special offer for the 3 books together. The 3 books together form a whole course, really. So I encourage you to buy all 3 books. I would say that, wouldn't I? But it's really important from that point of view. The Rich Photographer, Poor Photographer course is, it covers everything, as I said before, from starting your business up to developing it and enhancing it and producing the best you possibly can, both for your client and also hopefully making a buck if you can, which is really important. So the book, the combination of the books is normally £39.99. I'm doing it for £35 direct from my website, and there's a code there, a coupon code. I'm sure Mark will provide you with some more information about that. But please have a look into that, and if you're interested, please feel free to buy the books. I also have written a couple of other books. This is my book about child portrait photography, which I was asked to produce by the beautiful people at the publishing company. They asked me to do this. It doesn't only cover location portraiture, which is what this book is about, but it also covers studio portraiture. I've been a studio photographer all my life, so I know my way around lighting. And it's a fantastic book if you want to learn tips and tricks for photographing children. There's a lot about psychology there as well. I'm a big believer in client and subject psychology. I need to make myself, when I meet children for the first time on these shoots, I have an hour and a half to be their best friend, and it's important to learn how to do that and techniques and methods for doing that. So hopefully an interesting book if you'd like to buy that as well. Contact me at my website and through me, and I can get you some signed copies, which would be a nice thing. Okay, so that's me doing my sales bit and gives you a bit of background to it. I want to show you some of the imagery now, which I think hopefully you'll enjoy, and to talk to you about how it developed. So the first year, this is the first book and the first cover. This, I'm pleased to say, is my daughter, who appeared on the front cover of the first book. That's called Nepotism, by the way. I don't feel too guilty about it because this photo shoot was actually the test shoot that I did when I was looking into how the book would actually work out. I photographed my daughter and my 2 sons at that time, and was shot in Chiswick Park. This particular image was one of my favorites from the shoot. She was 12 then. She's now 25 years old, basically. So, well, 25 this year. So quite a lovely thing from that point of view to see those go by. But this won me this image won me several awards, a BIPP award and several others. So I felt quite justified in putting it on the front cover of the first book, and I hope you like it. I think it's a lovely image. That year we had it was very interesting. When you first start a project, you place yourself out there, and it's interesting to see. I've got no idea how people are going to react. My marketing was all very experimental. It was mainly done with leaflets and postcards, and by talking to people at different places. I had this lovely lady in North London who had 3 sons and was a big Beatles fan and lived near Abbey Road. So I said, well, hey, let's do an Abbey Road takeoff. So we did this shoot, which I think is fantastic. If you check out the actual Abbey Road front cover, you'll find there's lots of similarities there. Their clothing was provided by Mom, and obviously these 3 boys, lovely boys, dressed up like 3 of the 4 Beatles that were on the actual cover itself. But if you look carefully on the cover, you'll see in the background of the cover of the actual album cover that there's a white Beetle in the background there. I was lucky to have a white Porsche that came by. There's obviously the Porsche design came from the Beetle design, and slotted itself into just the right position there in the background. I did manipulate a little bit in post-production just to make it really clean and look right, but always been one of my favorite shots, and it was a great starter for the first book. I really enjoyed it. But it was very important to me that clients understood that the book was about the children first and the location second. So whereas a lot of the shots were children within these fantastic locations in London, not all of them were. And one of my favorite shots from the book was actually this. This was shot in a park. In fact, it was shot in Regent's Park, believe it or not, with a bit of white reflector behind the child. Even though they said nothing about the location, it was a child of London. It was shot within London. And I think it's very beautiful and sums up a lot of the ideas that we had for the book, and it just shows, variety is the key to the book, and it's a beautiful thing from that point of view. So in 2011, things got a bit more serious. I had a few more applicants. I think we had 78 applicants that year, so it stepped up quite a bit. I was still accepting all applicants at that time, and we managed to get fantastic access to what was then the site of Battersea Power Station, which is one of the aspects of using a charity, by the way, is that it gave me great access to locations, because I would say, well, I'm shooting for Great Ormondshire Hospital, and you get this great access. This was almost impossible to get access to at the time, as they built and developed Battersea Power Station. And then, of course, the book itself, year after year, formed an archive of images of not only the children, but also London. And London's a very changing, developing city. And later on, you'll see images that I shot at Battersea Power Station after it had been developed and changed and whatever. And I think it's interesting showing that and seeing how it all changed and moved along. This was again a very interesting image. This was shot in the butterfly house outside annually the Natural History Museum has a butterfly house, and this little boy was really passionate about his butterflies. And one of the things I wanted to introduce the public to was the fact that not every image of a child needed to be a child looking at the camera, gazing and grinning at you. Interesting images come in all sorts of different forms, and the parent bought a very large print of this for their wall and loved it. Again, I felt it was one of the most significant shots in the book on that basis. The other aspect, as I mentioned before, is that we did manage to start getting some good access. This was shot, this was Wimbledon, Centre Court of Wimbledon. At that time, I was one of the only photographers to be given permission to shoot at Wimbledon Centre Court out of season. These two were part of the Wimbledon Academy. The girl on the left in particular impressed me. She blew me away. Her name was Kung, and a lovely girl, such a sweet, kind little thing. Her mum was from South Korea, so she had South Korean parentage. Such a lovely, quiet, slight girl, but my goodness, when that girl hit a tennis ball, it was like somebody had just shot a cannon. It was incredible. The power of this, of these young sportsmen was absolutely phenomenal. And I always loved this shot. It was one of my favourite shots then, and still is now. Great access getting there. In 2012, I had one of my first baby front covers, which is really nice. the criteria for Children of London is that children can apply, providing that within that year they're anywhere from 0 to 12 years old. We don't do teenagers. As I say, I've had several teenagers in my life. I've got one again now. I had 2 others who are now in their 20s. And in case you didn't know, teenagers smell. So I insisted that we don't have any smelly people in the book. So we don't have teenagers. 0 to 12 is important, but as long as they're 12 within that year. So we've had some kids that have been 13 during the year of the shoot, but as long as they were 12 within the year, that's fine. But I love this shoot. These parents were from Canada. They emigrated to London. They loved London. So as often is the case with immigrants to the country, they feel more proud to be British than natural born Brits, which I think is fantastic. And I love this cover on that basis. It meant a lot to them too. This was a great shoot. I always encourage the kids to bring along pets if they want to. And lo and behold, they brought along this giant Irish wolfhound. This family were lovely. This was actually my first reshoot ever in the history of the book. They turned up, lovely 3 kids. Mom and Dad were lovely. They had a big VW camper van. They turned up. This was shot in Regent's Park. But the youngest child wasn't performing very well, and it turned out that she had flu. So halfway through the shoot, I just said, "Look, this isn't working out. I'm really sorry, guys. Can we reconvene and do it again?" And they were lovely about it, and we did that. There's no point in trying to force children to do something that they can't do. I've learned that in the past. I've had very, very, very few reshoots, but this was one of them, and it was well worth it. They bought a fantastic big A1 print of this and several other prints, and also a storybook, and bought all the digital images. It was a very high-paying client. And we also did we ended up doing a video of this as an instructional video of how to shoot this, which is also available to buy on my website. But it's a really interesting thing. You can see how I work and how I function on that basis. Not all the shoots need to be these dynamic shots of kids flying through forests and woods and with fabulous locations behind them. These 2 girls were very beautiful. They weren't twins. They were a couple of years apart from each other. But I really loved changing the vibe a little bit after doing all the long flamboyant shots of them in their location. It's always nice to do a really clean, simple portrait. And at the end of the day, I felt these 2 close-ups of their 2 faces shot in lovely toned black and white were just absolutely stunningly beautiful. And it's important to note that just because you're on location, it doesn't mean you have to use every part of it. Just the children themselves are the stars here, and that's important to me. So in 2013, we ended up shooting one of the images that was always been one of my favorites. This image, the front cover image, was shot at the Globe Theatre, the Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. Again, we got access to that because we were shooting for Great Ormond Street Hospital. So it gives you that access, which is a fantastic thing to remember. It started raining during the shoot, so I quickly changed shutter speeds to quite a fast shutter speed, and we managed to catch the rain in the air. This was one of 3 sisters. You'll see the other 2 sisters are on the stage behind her there. But that lovely moment of catching her just as she spun around was so beautiful. Mum turned up with all these fantastic Shakespearean outfits, and it was a fabulous shoot. And again, I won several awards for this shot, so very happy with it, very proud of it. You may or may not recognize this boy, actually. I don't know whether you do or not, but this is the first family in the history of the book to apply twice to be in the book. Those 3 kids that were on the Abbey Road, the eldest one of them, this is him in 3 years later, and he's now doing his passion was fencing. We did this amazing shoot on top of the hill, just above I can't remember the name of the place now. It's kind of just above London Zoo there. I'm sure people will recognize it, but really lovely, including the location behind there. Very important to remember to adjust both your aperture and your shutter speed to try to either blotch out the background, which I love to do. I shoot most of my stuff at f2.8, so I'm getting that lovely bokeh effect of cleanly ripping out the background so the child is super sharp. But on this occasion, I wanted to show the city behind him, so this was shot at f16, and I was able to pose him in this position, which is naturally beautiful. He liked it because he was able to structure his pose, so it was the perfect fencing pose. I've never done any fencing in my life, but I'm told this is a very good pose. and beautiful shot, and lovely for children to come back. I have a 2-year rule, so they're not allowed to apply the following year, but they can apply 2 years later. So I've now had several people that have come back, and I'll show you some more of those a little bit later on. Great shot. I really enjoyed this shoot. We do a lot of action stuff. This was shot on the Millennium Bridge of 3 lovely children, a lovely light, bright, clean image. I don't shoot many group shots as a rule, because you can spend half an hour shooting one group shot, and I only have these kids for an hour and a half to 2 hours normally. So I'm more intent on getting individual shots. Also, commercially, let's be honest, you don't want your parents having the option to buy too many group shots when you actually want them to be able to buy individual shots. So, you know, I'm very commercially minded about it. It's very important. I always think it's important that they have an option to buy a group shot. Of course, they need to do that, but try to sell them individual images as well. I think it's really important. That way you get more sales, they get better images, and everybody's happy. But I love this shot. Lots of fun.
So
in 2014,
before we move on, how many kind of shots would you do during the shoot?
That's a very, very good question, and something that I always instruct my freelancers on as well. We do between 400 and 500 images per shot, per shoot, because I'm looking for an average of about 1 in 10. All my viewings consist of 40 images, 40, only 40, and I do that because I want to have enough images for the client to have you know, a good selection of variety, but at the same time a small enough selection for them not to feel overwhelmed. And we find 40 works about right. So 400 to 500 images is plenty. Any less than that, it can become a bit of a struggle. Any more than that, it becomes a bit of a pain. So hopefully that answers that concisely.
Yeah. When they're applying, can they apply as a group, or is it got to be an individual who applies?
When you say a group, do you mean group as
a group of
parents,
a family, you know, brothers and sisters and things? Really, what are they applying?
It's very, in fact, that's a good, again, a very good question, because it's something that crops up quite a lot. First of all, sometimes we have parents that apply for them and their cousins and their family. We don't allow that. It has to be just one family. But secondly, we often have parents that apply for one child, and they don't realize that they can actually apply for the whole family of children. In fact, obviously, we encourage that. So as long as the kids are under 12 years old, then we want them all there. It's interesting that part of what we do, and this is explained in the books, is we're always trying to mold and push and prod our clients into our mold of what the perfect client is. And one of the things that we try to make it clear to them is that factor that don't just apply for one child. You know, if you're applying, then it applies to all your children. But nevertheless, no matter how many times you tell people that, in no matter how many ways, there's always going to be people that miss the point. So we're very used to picking that up from people. So what we want is people to apply for the whole family. And the reason for that is A, because it gives us more photographic opportunities, and B, from their point of view, you know, they don't want to exclude children from the photo shoot. People sometimes get the idea that we're photographing just extraordinary children, and they might have one child that's a chess champion or a fantastic football player. But it's important to me to include all the children, because they're all valuable. And again, in all our promotional material, we make that very clear. So one family, but we do want all the kids. We do want all the kids from the family up to 12 years old.
Okay. What happens with the kind of the flow of the shoot? Is it kind of, obviously we're seeing a kind of subject in landscape, and you're talking about where they choose to be photographed. In other words, a favorite location and so on, with it going back to the heart of it. If you've got 2 or 3 kids and they're all in it and they've all got a different location, how are you adapting to the one location? And then as far as the amount of images that you shoot and to present to the client, you know, are there close-up images with every shoot that you do, or how are you making the decisions? Is it a one-off thing, or is it a bit of a kind of a flow that you keep to?
Yeah, you know me, Mark, and I like to control every single element of my shoot. So the answer to your question is absolutely yes on all this and all those parts. Fundamentally, I have a very, very, very strict system that I work to, although it's flexible, obviously, but a strict system in terms of which I tend to think like a videographer. I'm not a videographer. My video is pretty dire, to be absolutely honest. But in videography, you think about the wide establishing shot, then the close up, and then the 3/4 shot, and then the full length. And that's how I like to view it. I'm a great believer in covering all the options, particularly if you have a location. Most of my favorite locations are actually relatively small locations. Something like Richmond Park, for instance, is a nightmare because you can spend half an hour walking from one tree to another part of the park, and you're only taking 2 shots. A small location like someone's back garden, or here, for instance, this is the terrace outside the not National Portrait Gallery, the Tate Modern. And I'm working on that terrace. It's fantastic because you've got loads of opportunities all around you. You can turn 360 degrees and get 360 different photographs. You can also, for each of those 360 degrees, you can move in close, you can move full length, you can move out wide, you can get them to jump, you can get them to run, you can get them to smile, you can get them to look away from camera, to the side of camera, etc., etc. And that's what I encourage my photographers to do and the way I work it. In my Photographing Children book, I explain that in great detail, how you can change the feel, the tone, the value of the shot by doing a very sensitive close-up image using your reflector to get beautiful lighting on the eyes and getting a beautiful image that works well on that. This image here is a great shot, I think, because it says so much. It's about how powerful the child is and how he's dominating the scene. And it's a really unusual image in terms of, it's not a traditional portrait image where you're looking at camera and smiling. But I will do that. And I'll also do shots of him being mad and jumping around and screaming and shouting. This little guy didn't actually have any brothers and sisters, but if I had brothers and sisters there, I'll do several shots of them together, then I'll take them away individually and do them sensitively on their own as well. One of the first things I do, Mark, which is quite important, sorry to interrupt you, but very important to me, when I first arrive on the scene, I get straight to the children. I don't talk to the parents, I talk to the children first. I want them to be my friend, I want them to be in with me from the outset. And what I'll first get them to do is normally get them to run towards camera. And the reason I do that is because often the only interaction these kids have had with photography has been either a school photo shoot, which, sorry, school photographers, but it can be very boring out there. Or alternatively, mom or dad saying, "Oh, smile, smile, smile for the camera," and they get so fed up with it. So when they arrive on the shoot, sometimes I think, "Oh, I've got another photo shoot," and then I go, "Okay, go over there, stick your arms out like an aeroplane, and run towards me as fast as you can." And they love it, And you're getting great images that the parents have never seen before, and also the kids, vibed up. They're having fun, they're enjoying it, and this is not what they expected. So using that psychology is really important.
How many outfits do they usually bring along with them?
Yet again, a very good question. On our criteria that we send out to clients, because we have a very strict criteria that we send out to them, we encourage them to bring at least 3 different outfits. And yet again, very important, guys, to remember this. This is how I work it. Yeah, in my mind, I think if you give your clients an opportunity to screw up, they will screw up. Okay, so don't just tell them 3 outfits, because if you say 3 outfits, they'll bring 3 red t-shirts, or worse still, they'll bring 3 black outfits. So we say to them, the script that we have, and my assistant Jess is very good at this now, is that please bring along at least three outfits on the day. We won't necessarily use all of them, but we'll definitely have at least 1 outfit change. You can bring anything you like. You can bring their school uniform, you can bring a t-shirt and jeans, you can bring a pantomime horse if you want to, but we have a few guidelines for you. Please don't bring anything that's black or grey, because it doesn't photograph very well, and don't bring things with great logos and cartoon characters all over them, because the image will be controlled by the cartoon character or by the logo. But other than that, bring as much as you can, and make sure you've got variety. Do not bring me 3 red t-shirts or 3 red outfits. Bring a pattern, bring something that's clean and crisp, and then bring something that's wild and wacky. And that's how we tend to do it. And we have exactly that conversation with all of them on the phone, and then we send it again in an email to them.
Great. Carry on with the images, Richard, because I've got a load of questions.
Yeah.
You know me.
Good questions, though, mate.
Thank you.
Literally, you're asking all the questions that I actually make sure my photographers and my assistants know about before they ring up. So yeah, you're hitting the mark. Good stuff.
Thank you.
So yeah, I love this image. It's a great image, and it's acted, as you probably saw, at the front cover of our website. Train stations. This is a good example of somewhere, a location that a lot of people wouldn't think about that can be really fascinating. We do a lot of the London train stations. They're fantastic to work on. You have to be very safety conscious and be very careful. Obviously, you'll see we're quite away from the platform there. Safety has to be the first thing on your mind whenever you're in any location, but particularly on something like this. But train stations, a regular portrait photographer or a regular client would not ask to be photographed in a train station. They'd ask to be photographed in a park, in the back garden, and so on and so forth. But we want variety. We want lots of different stuff going on. And train stations make great locations. I love this. We shoot a lot in all the different train stations. Once again, great access. Any prizes for guessing where this is? It's the Albert Hall. Now, you don't get into the Albert Hall very easily, I can tell you that. But once again, with our charitable aspect of the project, we're able to get access to the Albert Hall. This particular girl was a fantastic violinist. Her mother was really insistent on us trying to get into the Albert Hall, and so we got access, which is fantastic, and did a lovely shoot. I was very privileged to be there. It's very important when you get these locations not to be overwhelmed by them either. So in other words, again, we do lots of the shots like this where you can see it's the Albert Hall, but again, coming back to what Mark said earlier, I'll also do some very sensitive close-up shots that are more about her than they are than the location. You've got to balance it between shooting them within the location to create some drama, but also make sure that the child is the hero of the shoot. 2015, this was shot in Chiswick, actually, sorry, in Acton. At the Park Club. These guys remember the Park Club. He was a big swimmer, loved his swimming, and his mum said, I'd love to do a shoot at the swimming pool, which is great. I love that. Fantastic fun, and something that we hadn't done before. Very different and interesting way of doing it, and it ended up being the cover shoot, which I loved. I thought it was fantastic, and just again a very interesting, different way of doing it. We're not shooting traditional portraits here. We're shooting a slice of life, part of their environment, something that they'll remember, something that creates a memory for them, and I think that's very important. This image also is, I think, is an important sort of guideline for the book and tells you what the book is about. The book is about an archive of images of London. This was one of the this was the final year that West Ham Football Club were in the Bowling Ground. I don't know if any of you are into football, you'll know that they moved on to the London Stadium and the Bowling Ground is no more. So this is an archival image of a West Ham fan in the Bowling Ground. And that was an amazing thing. You can see the stadium behind them and him in his full kit there. And any West Ham fan is going to treasure this forever. And it's going to be an amazing shot from that perspective. And again, we got access because of who we are. If you try bringing up the West Ham Football Club and say I want to do a portrait shoot on your pitch, then you won't get there. We get into I've done virtually every Premiership football club in London now. We've just had a couple of applications in for one in for Arsenal, one in for Chelsea. I've done both Arsenal and Chelsea before, and we'll do them again. And we also insist, by the way, if we get them, that we get access to the pitch itself. So we're not just like one of the punters on the outside; we're on the inside. And I find now that the project has quite a punch to it, and we can get these access, which is great. This is a very sensitive shot, and again, brings in some of the aspects we've been talking about. This was actually shot in the Natural History Museum. Most of the shoots I've done in the Natural History Museum are great, wide, fabulous shots with dinosaurs behind and great, huge stuff, and the architecture there's fabulous. But he brought along his little pet Tyrannosaurus Rex, and I love this shot. It was shot right at the top of the if anybody knows the area, right at the top of the Natural History Museum, where very few people get there, and there's this lovely bench there, beautiful old bench, and I just thought it was a very sensitive image of him with his little pet dinosaur there on the side. 2016, again, this is an interesting aspect. It doesn't, London isn't all about London Bridge and but it's not all about Tower Bridge and Buckingham Palace and all the big things. It's also about these little iconic places. I love telephone boxes. One of the things I was taught to me by my original mentor when I very first started out as a photographer, and I had my very first camera kit, a tip that stayed with me forever, which is that if you ever want to turn a boring photograph into an interesting photograph and you're in England, then find a post box or a telephone box. A little splash of red in the background can really brighten up an image and create something that's wonderful. And I've always remembered that. And I love this. I love this shot because I just love the laughter on the little girl's face. It's such a real piece of emotion there, and this ended up being the front cover. And I think a lot of people wouldn't put this as the front cover of a London book, but for me, I think it says everything about what London represents and what it stands for. This shot is one of my all-time favorite images, and I bring it up because it was very difficult to get. It's quite fun to get, and I've actually entered this into I think about 8 competitions, and it's never come anywhere. So for all you guys and girls out there that enter photographs and you don't get anything from it in these competitions, always remember that there are judges out there who have absolutely no clue of what a great photograph should look like. I'm very privileged to be asked to judge a lot of photographic competitions myself, and I personally think this is a great image. I love the fact these are 5 brothers. Imagine having 5 children under 12. This lovely lady was an Australian lady who lived in a square in W2 in London, and this is one of those garden squares in the middle, and all the houses around the outside the square and the flats have access to the garden square. And when these boys went into the garden square, she said that you could hear all the parents in the square sighing to themselves as if they go, "Oh my goodness, those bloody kids." And they were absolutely fantastic. I loved them. It was like trying to control a bunch of wild animals, these kids, but I love them for that. And I think what I love about this photograph is that I really feel that I've managed to capture the individual character of each child in the shot. And this is the only shot I got of all 5 of them together. Within seconds after this, they were all jumping around and running around again. But yeah, I love this image. I think it's great. So I don't care what the judges say. I love it. Now, this was a fascinating shoot. This is what's called the Bridge of Aspiration. This young girl, her name is Anna Sophia. I forget her exact age. I think she was about 8 at the time. Her crazy Russian mom contacted me and applied, and she was such a lovely lady. She was completely bonkers. And she said, "My daughter wants to be part of the Royal Ballet, and we're training day and night, and she loves her ballet. We'd love to be photographed on the Bridge of Aspiration, which is part of the Royal Ballet Complex in Covent Garden." So we got permission to go there, and it's a fabulous location, very unusual, very different location. Mum brought along lots of lovely ballet outfits and these balloons as well. But by the way, I did photograph her also later on in Covent Garden itself, outdoors, regular head and shoulders-y type shots. So, if you're doing these shoots, it's very important not to become one-dimensional. Give the opportunity for the client to buy different images for different reasons, and that's really important to me. But I love this ballet shoot, and later on you'll see how this girl developed into one of the most interesting subjects I've ever had. I'll show that later on. 2017. This is my favorite shot, as I already explained, my favorite way of getting them going. I arrive at the shoot, round the corner from their house. This is in Barnes, just south of the river. And I said to them, "Okay, run down there, go down there to that lamppost, and then run back towards me with your eyes wide open like an aeroplane." And these kids ran up and down, and it really invigorated them for the shoot. But I love this. I love it. It's so London. It felt very much like a movie from the 1950s or something, and I love that aspect to it. And great fun, great shot, and the other shots in there were fabulous as well. 2 really, really lovely kids. This image has been in my portfolio now for a long time. I've actually put it in for several awards, and the dog on the left-hand side there, when the parents arrived, they were actually Italian. Mom was kind of rolling her eyes. Dad was this fantastic Italian guy, and he bought the dog at the same time as the baby was born, because he had this idea that the dog would be the protector of the baby. And sure enough, this Doberman, which looked vicious when you met it, regarded the baby as being its compadre. And trust me, if anybody nefarious went anywhere near that kid, that dog would have him for breakfast. But I love the fact that we did a shoot in the park with them, had a great fun. We went back to their apartment, and they dressed him up in an outfit that was the same color as the dog's colouring, which I think was fantastic. And I managed to capture this one moment where the dog had his mouth open and the baby had his mouth open. And I just love the parity between them, and it's always been one of my favourite images from the book. This is an interesting shot too. This is shot in Kew Gardens, an art installation that they have there, which is a beautiful thing. It's really gorgeous. It's actually connected to a beehive, and it hums and buzzes as the bees work. But just again, an interesting way of getting a very different shot that hopefully has some creative aspects to it that parents can see and will appreciate more. You know, don't ever underestimate your clients on the basis that although parents may not be creative in their own right, they will appreciate it when you come up with an image that expresses something different in their life. One of the ways that I often sell my images to my parents is I say to them that we try to create pieces of artwork, not just portraits, but pieces of artwork. And anybody in the world could have this picture on their wall because it's a beautiful, fascinating image of a child leaping in the air with a great composition, and it says a lot more than just a normal photograph. They can have a piece of artwork on the wall that also happens to feature their child. So don't shy away from these things. Don't feel you have to play into their hands and do smolchy, nicey pictures all the time. You can do interesting, outrageous shots as well, and they often do buy them. This was a very interesting occasion. This is the first time I'd done something like this. This was a stately home in Wimbledon that was a contained home. They only opened the home up about 4 or 5 times a year. I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name of it now. But it's opened up about 4 or 5 times a year to the general public, but it's basically untouched. So, you know, it's as it was when it was first built. And it's run by this lovely, completely bonkers, mad family who still own the property. And I went there. I couldn't believe it. Was like walking into a history program. Everywhere you went, it was just exactly as it had been frozen in time. So beautiful. And this lovely girl turned up. And I love the slightly kind of spooky aspect to this. That hobby horse was actually presented to them by Nelson. And so it tells you how far back it goes back. But I love this so much. We did a great shoot there, and the parents were fabulous, and they bought a load of shots. But when it came to doing the front cover, I ran them and said, look, I'd really love to go back there and do a full-on shoot as just for the front cover of the book. So this was very different to my other occasions. So this was lit using beautiful Elincrom lights, including the outside the window there. You can see the streaming light coming into the window. Top light, big headlight, and so on. Even the light on the lamp was set up with flash and enhanced greatly. But it enables you to have that, obviously, that little bit more control over it. So this year's front cover shot was shot specifically for the cover, which is very unusual for me. I didn't normally do that, but I think it's a beautiful image and I enjoyed it very much.
Did you change her differently? So what she wore for the front cover shoot compared to what she was in when you did the original shoot? Obviously it looks very styled, or is it the same?
No, Mum brought along those kind of outfits anyway, so you know it all suited and fitted. It's one of those occasions where you do the shoot, and I love the shot. We did a very similar shot to that within the shoot on the day, but there's only a certain amount you can do with cameras and reflectors. I don't use any lighting in my in the shoots for the book, other than I do have a single LED light which I use to just punch a bit of light in sometimes. But sometimes you go to a location like that and you just think, God, if I could light this, it would be spectacular. You know, as photographers, I think it's important that we recognize the limitations that we have in front of us. And if you know that you can get something even better than that with lighting, as I did on the day, I just thought, I've got to come and do this. It's so important. So I negotiated with the people to go back there. We had the whole place to ourselves for a half day. Which again, you know, I keep on saying this, I know, but you can only get that kind of access if you have an alternative reason for doing it. Normally, you know, you'd have to pay. You know, we never pay for locations. We only, you know, but we get in there using the charitable aspect as an entry point. So, you know, everybody wins really. I get access, they get a great picture, and the charity gets some money. So it works well. This is an example of the opposite to that, I guess, or you know, going back to what I said originally, shot on location for real. You'll see on one of my absolute staples is a small bounce reflector that folds up so it can fit in my camera bag, but it's big enough to give that lovely reflection you can see under the eyes there. My kit has to be carryable in one rucksack bag, one backpack camera kit. I take one camera, I take 3 lenses, so one camera body, 3 lenses, a light and a reflector. I don't even have a spare camera body these days because my cameras these days are so reliable. It's not as essential as it used to be. So I travel very light and that's all I have. But I insist on using the reflector. And I think it's really interesting when you see a shot like this. For me, this has an editorial advertising quality about it. It's a beautiful, simple, crisp image of a very beautiful little girl. And I think, you know, again, you know, I hope you can tell by by this conversation that I'm working between beautiful images of the children, but then images of the children within the location as well. So again, it's giving the parent more than one opportunity to buy different images for different reasons. I often think images like this in terms of competitions and so on are overlooked. I think it takes great skill and great attention to detail to get a beautiful image like this, but they're often overlooked in terms of competitions, and I think it's a real shame. I think more attention should be paid to lifestyle, to strong lifestyle type images, and I think this is a great example of that. Graffiti is something that I love. This was shot on Brick Lane. This lovely Indian family who turned up with full Indian outfits. I loved it, but I love the showing the kind of the juxtaposition between him and his very traditional outfit, and then this really funky, cool, modernistic graffiti behind. And we did lots of shots and lots of different graffitis on that basis on that day. And I really liked the difference, the expressing those differences. And the parents loved it as well. They bought lots of shots on this. And again, this is a big long shot all about the location. And then we did lots of close-ups and very beautiful soft close-up shots as well. So this location was something very special. When I first went there, I've been there 3 times now, but this is the first time I went there. It's a place called God's Own Junkyard, which is in East London, where they make neon signs. So they have this fantastic warehouse full of neon signs, and they open it up to the public about 3 times a month. You can go there. If you look at their website, you can find different occasions where you can go. They've actually got a little cafe there as well, but it's quite restricted in terms of access. This was a great occasion where we went there. I love this lovely girl, and she turned up with this incredible outfit with the wings, which I thought were fantastic. It just had to be the front cover shot. The only aspect of it, though, which is really important, is that obviously you can imagine that within an environment where you have lots of neon signs being built, there's lots of neon signs which are used for, should I say, alternative reasons. Soho being a fairly obvious connection. So there was a lot of signs there saying things like sex and so on, which of course would be completely unsuitable for a book devoted to children. So I had to go over this image and all the other images within that set with a fine tooth comb to take out any reference to girls available for sale and sex and whatever. So it was quite a challenge. And I lost so much sleep night after night, just imagining how awful it would be if, having printed this as the front cover, that somebody then saw an image of a penis in the background there, and I would have to pull the entire book. So it was my constant nightmare that we'd missed something. But anyway, fantastic place to shoot. Very difficult to shoot there. Again, this is a place where I use my little LED light just to punch a bit of clean light into the front of her, so we could actually get the balance between it and the background. And this was shot on about, I think, 2500 ISO. So 2,500 to 3,000 ISO, you get a lot of grain. So you need to be working with equipment that can handle that and lenses that will express the beauty of the image, and hopefully not getting too mushy and too dirty. Quite challenging. Twins, always a winner. In the book, we've had twins, we've had triplets. So I'm about to show you a bit later on one of the more extreme examples. But we have had a couple. We've had a couple of triplets, but we normally have a couple of twins applications per year. They're not guaranteed to get in, but they often do. And again, we like to show we like to show images of them together and then images of them separately. But I love that image, this image for that. It's a nice, beautiful, joyous, happy image. It's interesting to me, you notice that they even lost their front teeth at the same time together, these two girls, so it's going to be quite funny. And they were gymnasts, by the way. They were really into the gymnastics. Of course, Dad likes to turn up with his favourite toy every now and again. I'm a big petrol head myself, so when he turned up with this beautiful Jaguar XK, I was absolutely blown away. And he said, can we use it in the shoot? And I was like, absolutely, we can. So we got a little baby boy there. And we did several shots of the boy with the car, which was fantastic. Luckily for us that day, the Albert Bridge was actually partly closed off. You can see behind him there the man with the stop go sign, which is fantastic. We just waited until he stopped the traffic coming in our direction, then we parked the car up and were able to shoot a lot more freely than we would do normally. great to use props and everything about, again, it's another way to connect it with the family, to get good emotional connection with these images, and that's why people buy the images and what makes them very interesting and different from normal photo portrait shoots. 2020 becoming a little bit more up to date. Now, 2020 was famous for one thing, which I'm sure you'll remember, which of course was when the pandemic hit. So it affected us greatly. In fact, we had to shut down for about 3 months for about 2 months when everything all stopped, because we couldn't do viewings, we couldn't do anything. But we were able to continue either part of the year. I was concerned at the second half of the year as to whether the applicants would actually be, would still come in at that point. Luckily for us, we opened up the doors to the social media, and it absolutely flooded in. So we got fantastic applicants that year. This is a shoot that I wanted to do for a time. I'd done several shoots at Tower Bridge, and I'd spotted this location where I always thought that could be a great cover shoot. And strangely enough, we hadn't had that many covers that actually were all about London icons, if you know what I mean. And Tower Bridge is such an icon of London that I loved this. It was great fun, and I shot it specifically in mind of the front cover. I always knew it would be a good option, and it worked out very well. It's a great location there. A lot of the these Singaporean and Chinese wedding photographers do these amazing 5-day photo shoots where they get their rich clients to travel around the world. You often find, I've been there, I've seen 2 other shoots happening there, 2 occasions that were Chinese or Far Eastern guys shooting for their pre-wedding shoots there, with big lavish dresses and whatever. But that's a beautiful location. So when would you ever be able to get Piccadilly looking like this? Only in a pandemic. This was completely empty. So we did this fantastic shoot in Piccadilly when the whole city was empty. These clients the parents were American. They were over here on secondment from their company, and they were going back to America that year. So they wanted to have something that would really express their experience of London, and they could take it with them. So they were a great client. They bought a lot of images, which was fabulous. 3 great kids, and as you can probably guess, this was one of the first shoots I did on the day, because it got them loosened up and got them vibing and into the shoot, and it was a great shoot. I really enjoyed it. Once again, great access here. This was Lord's Cricket Ground. How many of you could say that you stood on the turf of Lord's? I've done it 4 times now. The people at Lord's have been fantastic. A lot of the big sports grounds they're great places. If you contact them, make a big deal of it, of the charitable connection there, they love it. This boy is a great cricket player as well. We get lots of applicants from people wanting to go to great sports grounds, but I like to reserve them for the kids that have some kind of real connection. So they've at a football ground, they want to be a lifelong fan, or they've been a mascot for them or whatever. The cricket ground, again, the same sort of thing. This kid was actually part of the English youth team. Was a great cricket player. So and I love this shot with the cricket ball in the foreground there. All I'm doing there is getting Dad to throw the ball up in the air in front of my camera every time, and then I'm combining the best shot of the ball in the air and the best shot of the kid. This is actually a combination of 2 shots. I'm going to get the eye line perfect to it, but I think it's a fantastic shot and worked very well. So, does anybody out there recognize this young lady? Yes, she is the lovely little ballet dancer that was on the Bridge of Aspiration. They applied a few years later, and her father gave us access to the office building where he worked in the office there, and we did this fabulous shoot, which I only did a couple of years ago, of the same lovely Anna Sophia. Was actually 13 that year, but during the year she was 12 years old, so she just qualified. So she was so excited to be in the book again. She is such a lovely girl, this girl. She's totally beautiful and such a lovely, well brought up, just a pleasure to work with. I know she's gone on to do great things. Her dancing has gone from strength to strength, and she is a lovely girl. I made some lovely friends and associations from doing the book, and I was so pleased to put her on the front cover. Some of you may have seen this at the SWPP show in 2021, which was up won a silver medal, I think, at the event. So yeah, I was very proud of it. It's a great shoot. Lovely girl. Once again, showing how history wraps itself around you. Now, of course, Battersea Power Station is this amazing development with apartments and shops and cinemas and and office buildings there. So we did this shoot there very recently. It just shows how different it can be from the previous shoot. You probably remember some years ago when it was a building site and was being developed. This lovely boy on his skateboard, fantastic fun. Very simple shot, and I love the simple shots. I really do. This was done with the help of my LED light. You can see that little twinkle in his eye, but it's just a very simple little shot. It was actually in Borough Market. I found this great location, the kind of red tiled building, which is really beautiful. Peep around the corner, having lots of fun, lots of banter with the children, lots of fun and whatever to make them, you know, understand that they've got more options than just standing there looking pretty and looking silly on camera. And this one little capture, bang, and you've got that lovely shot that the parents will remember forever and says so much more than a big grinning image. I love it. Very simple but very beautiful shot. It's lovely to have these different, I keep on saying it, but differences between simple, complicated, lavish, tight, sensitive, happy, interesting, beautiful. You know, think of all those words and think of all the ways that you can apply them to your shoots every time. So the most recent cover was this shot on the outside of the Albert Hall. Two gorgeous girls who turned up. Their mum did a fabulous job of bringing fantastic outfits for them. These were obviously these really over-the-top wedding outfits. The two girls had been bridesmaids at a friend's wedding only 6 months before, so they had these lovely outfits, and they turned up with them, did a fantastic run around. They were absolutely bonkers, these girls. I love them. We did some shoots of them inside as well. We actually shot up in the seating area and they were actually rehearsing in the background there for a big show at the time. So we had this fantastic lighting going on. It was really wonderful, and great access. Another thing I remember about this shot, which is quite important, something to do, all those paving slabs, you know, look perfect and wonderful. We all know that they won't look like that in real life. They'll be covered in chewing gum and cigarette ends and bits of old litter and dirt and whatever. So, you know, 20 minutes spent cleaning up every aspect of that is worth its weight in gold in terms of the parents seeing a perfect shot at them today. They bought a lot of images from this shoot. I have to say they really did. This was ended up being an A1 print on their wall, but they bought digitals, they bought storybooks, they bought several other images. I gave them lots of options, lots of reasons to buy, and that's what's important. In terms of viewings, there's a lot of psychology involved in terms of viewing, and that psychology starts right at the shoot stage. I'm a really big believer in making sure that when you're shooting, you're thinking about the sales as well as the creativity of the shots. And this is a great example of that, but a lovely front cover shot, and I loved it. So yeah, if you thought that our 5 kids under 12 was the highest, this was actually 6 kids. Believe it or not, there's 7. There's a baby there as well that wasn't in this particular shot. But this poor lady has 7 children, all under 12. And she is the most chilled out, lovely lady you've ever met in your life. She was just, I found, weirdly enough, the more children that people have, the more chilled out they are, weirdly enough. It must be something to do with their nature. But capturing this one image of them all running towards camera, they're all sharp, they're all got their eyes open, they're all smiling, they're all laughing, was a great thing. We also did another shot of the 6 of them plus the baby in there as well, which is a great triumph. A hell of a challenge, but a lovely thing to do. And this, I think, is the final image that I want to show you from the book, which is, again, moving right back to the opposite, that lovely soft sensitivity. Shots do not need to be all about children looking at camera, looking beautiful. This is a fabulous shot, I think, of Paddington Bear, shot at Paddington Station. We've done lots of shots on the platform at the station there. This is outside the station on the upper area. Shot under a bridge. There's a lovely statue there of Paddington, and the girl loved it. She was a big Paddington fan. She wanted to go and hug it, so she went up and hugged it, stood on it and gazed perfectly towards the light as the wind was blowing through her hair. Bang, you've got that shot. You know it's going to work. I think it works beautifully as a monochrome image as well in black and white. And a fabulous shot, and again shows the differences, the variety, the different textures and different feelings and different emotions that you can bring through every shoot. So that is it. I hope you enjoy those images. As I said before, they inspired me to write these books, which are about the business side of it, and the other book, which is about the child portrait side of it, which I hope you can get some value from, guys, and I hope you enjoyed that very much. I hope I didn't go on too much.
No, it's absolutely brilliant. That's why I wasn't asking many questions, because it was absolutely brilliant, mate. Very well done.
Probably couldn't get a word in edgeways, Mark. I'm sorry
No,
about
no, no, no. We actually had about a 40-minute chat before we even got going,
that.
didn't
We
we?
did,
Just
didn't we?
gossiping and solving the world, and you'd swear we've been mates for forever. But
The two of us
basically,
together,
we
we
only
solved
chatted twice, kind of thing. But talk us
absolutely.
through the basic structure of the children of London. So I've got 5 grandsons under the age of 7. In fact, one under the age of 7, 3 under the age of 5, and 1 under the age of 2. All right. So I apply. Okay, I can't apply because I'm not in London. But if I did apply,
Yes.
am I actually making my donation before I apply? So no matter what, I have to donate, and then the application is kind of looked at.
Yeah. Okay. So the application. Well, first of all, I would say about 50% of our applicants now come from recommendation, so that's helpful because I've already got the idea of it from other people.
Yeah.
The rest of it is done from promotions. We do. We're very good at social media now. I mean, if I tell you, I had 106 applicants last week from just purely from social media. From which we'll choose probably 2 or 3 now, because we're very choosy about what we choose now. But the process of applying, we go out there and we present the proposition to the client. The proposition is we're looking for children to appear in a fantastic archival book forming a history of London over the years. If your child is chosen, they'll appear in the book, and the book is produced as a limited edition fine art book. They're all numbered and signed, and number 1 will be maintained by the monarch, number 2 by the Prime Minister, number 3 by the Mayor. They then apply on that basis to appear to be photographed in a book. There's no talk of it being a portrait shoot or them having to buy prints or anything like that, because that's not an essential requirement. They apply via the website. Everybody applies via the website. When they go to the website, they have lots of information there. Then it's a lot more detailed, as you saw before. But very important part of the website is make sure that you have your apply now, your access to the application needs to be very prevalent and very easy to do. So on every page we have apply now. If they hit that apply now button, they'll be sent to a form, and they have to fill in an online form, and that form gives me lots of information about them, who the children are, their ages, and so on, where the parents live, what their occupations are, what they do for a living, what their ideas for a shoot is, etc., etc. So all that is in the application form. It's a 1-page application form. They click on that and send it through. They can also send photographs optionally if they want to. They don't have to, but they can do. And that comes through to me as an email. And every week I sit down and I go through all the emails, and then I choose on that basis. Once we choose them, if they get chosen, which is dependent on lots of factors, where they are, how old they are, what they look like, what their ideal is like. I'm saying what they look like, but only what they look like based on the fact that we like to get a nice racial mix. It isn't about beautiful kids. It's about variety. Yep. My assistant will then ring them up, and she'll then have a chat with them and make it very clear to them, and then she'll send them a link for them to make a donation to Great Ormond Street Hospital. It's only when they're chosen that they're asked to make a donation to the hospital, because the donation is in lieu of a shoot fee. So they do not pay a shoot fee. I make nothing out of it whatsoever. We have a Just Giving page which goes directly to Great Ormond Street, and every child that is photographed has to make a donation to Great Ormond Street as a payment for the shoot, and every child that is chosen is guaranteed to appear in the book. So that's how it works.
Great. And then do they get a copy of that book, or do they have to buy that book, or is the book not available for them to buy?
No, the book is available for them to purchase. They don't get a copy, I'm afraid. The books are £199 each, which is a bit of a woo. But when you see the book, it is magnificent. They're all hand-bound, hand-printed. They're beautiful. They come in their own box. They're all numbered and signed individually. They have an opportunity to either buy the book on the website, or alternatively, they can buy it. Most people buy it when they come to their viewing. The books always sell out. And by the way, we make virtually nothing from selling the book, because anybody who's done a book like this will know that the production costs of these high-end art books is phenomenal. There's a lot of work that goes into producing the book. mainly by me, because I write the whole thing, I edit it, I put it all together and send it out. But then I have an amazing team of skilled people who are the binders, the printers, and the art workers who take my graphic artwork scribbles and put it into the real thing. It comes in a box which is embossed in silver. It's a beautiful thing. But part of the product, which is a very important factor of these things, if you're going to do something like this, then don't scrimp on the details. It's important that people see that what they're buying into is something that is special, something that is valuable, something that has longevity. Most people, when they come to the view, when they see the book, they literally have their breath taken away, because it is a stunning piece of work. So £199 sounds like a lot up front, but when you see the book, trust me, it's cheap at twice the price. I promise you.
Mm. When the clients, do they come to your home, or they come to a location for the viewing?
Yeah, they come to my office. My office, my studio is actually an apartment that I own. I used to have tenants there, and I kicked them out, and I use it as my office. I have a studio there as well. It's a nice location. I'm very lucky. It's in Chiswick, but wasn't always. I used to use, when I first started out and I had no money at all, I used to use my living room at home to do the viewings. But I have a big seminar all about viewings. It's really important, I think, to get that psychology of the viewing right. I'm convinced that most people lose a huge amount of money by not paying enough attention to how they do viewings and where they do them and how they present them. So it's all done there. We don't do online viewings. If a client wants to go online, we say no. If they say that's the only thing they'll do, we say thank you very much, goodbye then. And that's how strict we are about it, because people don't buy online at this level. I have another business. I have a nursery school portrait business, a lovely little business. I don't shoot for it. I have other photographers that shoot for me, but that's done entirely online. That's an online type of business. This is not an online business. It's an in-person business. People are buying high-end piece of artwork. The cost of what they buy is extremely high. The quality is fantastic, and they need to give some attention to it. If they're not prepared to give some attention to it, then in my opinion, they're not going to buy anyway, so I'm not losing out from it. I'm very strict about that.
The style is very lifestyle and editorial in the portrait kind of styling, from what we've been seeing. As far as when the client is buying a product, you mentioned about print a lot. You didn't mention about framed print. Is that something that they can buy extra, or you don't get involved with the finished product, or how does it work?
Very much so. I mean, one of the things that I think is one of my mainstays for me personally is that I believe that when people come to see you to buy to have a photo shoot, and I think people need to really understand what this means. If a client is coming to you for a photo shoot, then you are the expert. They are not the expert, you are. You don't take your car to a garage and then tell the mechanic how to fix it. So what I mean by that is, and I'm not saying this from an arrogant point of view, I'm saying it from a giving a good service to your client point of view. The client should understand. They will ask you, what frame is the right frame for my image? They'll ask you, what size should it be? They'll ask you, how should I print this? How should I work this? How should I do it? So you should be the person that tells them that. You should be the person that instructs them as to how that works. That will benefit you and it will benefit them. So the answer to your question is, of course, yes, I do framing. But I'm going to tell you something else that I think is very, very important. First of all, I use the very best frame company in the UK, in my opinion. Company called Kaleidoscope. I know there's other companies out there, I'm sure, that do a great job, but I've used Kaleidoscope for many, many years now. And the reason I use them is because their service is second to none. Their product is fantastic, and the people that work for them are absolutely wonderful. I have a great relationship with them, and I'm not paid by them. They're not paying me money to say this, but they have the same ethics that I do, and I love that about them. But what I offer, and I think this is very important, again, if I have clients that I mentor for their businesses, one of the biggest mistakes that most portrait and wedding photographers make is they give too much choice to their clients. Your client does not want choice. If you ask the client what they want, they'll say choice. But any psychologist will tell you this. Choice is a problem. Choice implies that people have to make a decision, and that means that they have to be that they're going to be indecisive, and they're going to worry about that. So what I offer them is one molding in either black or white, full stop. That's it. That's all I do. Why do I do that? Because I'm the artist. and I will tell them what's good for their images. Do you know how many people over the years that I've done viewings for after 14 books? Literally over 1,000 people. Is that right? Yeah, it is over 1,000 people, over 2,000 children. I would think I can count on less than one hand the amount of people that have said, well, but could I do wood? Or have you got any wooden frames or any gold frames? Or can you do canvas? Yeah, literally, that's the amount of people that do it. If you don't give them the choice, they won't ask. If you give them loads of choice, they'll be confused and they'll make loads of wrong decisions. So keep it clean, keep it simple, but give them the choice. The prints that I do, I only produce Hahnemuller German etching fine art giclée prints, which we print in-house ourselves. We don't get them printed en masse by lots of different print companies, because I want the client to understand that what they're getting from us is a piece of bespoke art, and I show them the prints when they get there. They can touch them, feel them. We spend a lot of time printing our images by hand in-house because we know what we're doing. So they're buying a piece of bespoke artwork from us, and everything that we do expresses that. So hopefully that answers your question, Mark.
No, it did. Brilliant. Thank you. Do you speaking about the frame, because I use Kaleidoscope as well, as you know.
Yeah.
But do you have anything on the back of it that gives it its authenticity from you or anything? Do you add a certificate of authentication or anything? Or you
that's an interesting thing. The answer to that is no, and I'll tell you an interesting story that goes with it. I used to sign all the prints on the front, because I personally, I love signed prints. So I used to do that. I don't anymore. And the reason I don't is because, once again, over the years, you learn certain things about the way the business, about the workflow. And what I found was this, is that out of 20 people will love the signature print and they think it's absolutely great. 1 in 20, when you presented them with their signed print that's all framed and done and finished, they'll come back to you and go, well, I really like the print, but the signature's a bit kind of distracting in the front there at the bottom.
Yeah.
And you can't really argue with that, if you know what I mean. So then the only way around that is to have the print back, to unframe it, to reframe it, to redo it. And it's such a hassle that I've learned in the past, show the client what they'll get, and then they know what they get. So I don't show them I don't show them signed prints anymore, because that way, if they want me to sign, they can say so and I will sign it, but that's their decision then, it's not my decision.
Yeah.
So they're not signed on the front. In terms of authenticity, no, I don't actually. I don't have a sticker on the back to say authentic or a certificate, but perhaps that's a nice idea. Like it. You should do this for a living, Mark. You know, you should run that kind of a business that tells photographer how to improve their businesses. You should do that for a living.
I think it would be lovely if it also had the Children of London and the year, because then as it gets handed down.
I might take that on board. I love that. I love that. It's all part of the archival thing. Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Yeah. And tell them about, what number it is in the, or, the date that it was. I think the more information on the photograph, like kind of drawing on a painting and thing, isn't it? The better it would be.
Well, the other reason to do those things as well after the event, I think, and I think a lot of people forget that the service, the after service is almost as important as the service before. And one of the reasons for that is that, what does that get you? It gets you recommendations, and what are recommendations? Free clients. That's what I look at. The amount of recommendations we get is phenomenally high, because they love the service we give. They love the whole process of what we do. It's about, I often say this in seminars as well, it's really important. Don't forget, as a photographer, you're an entertainer. You're entertaining people. They go to the theatre to watch an entertainment, but they also buy the popcorn, they sit on the seat, they enjoy the trip there, they enjoy the dinner afterwards, and so on. And that's what we're going to the theatre is all about. So when you come to a photographer, don't just slap a bunch of pictures in front of them. Give them some entertainment, give them a show, invite them in, put chocolates on the table, serve them good coffee, not some crappy old Nescafe thing, proper coffee, good stuff. Have the room smelling of daisies and beautiful and wonderful stuff, and talk to them, chat to the people, have a good old time. The whole thing should be a process. And on the shoot as well, involve the client. Mom and dad loved holding the reflector, and they can see the difference it makes. And I always talk them through that. It makes them feel part of the whole process and so on. It's really important, all those extra things. And I love your idea of a certificate afterwards. That's something that we may well take on board. Thank you.
I think the child will remember it, but in fact the parent will remember it more.
Yeah,
I think being
absolutely.
involved in the shoot, in the activity, in the chaos at times, and in the serenity and the emotion that they can see in their child's eyes while you have that connection with them for 5 minutes or 2 hours. It's at that stage they've actually bought in without them even realizing. They actually get it and so on with it. And,
Do you know what? It's often a cliche, but there is something that is worth more money than diamonds and gold and every precious stone in the world, and that is, every parent will tell this, is their children. That's why, that's what the essence of this business is about. And I think that on the one hand, yes, I benefit from that. I benefit from the fact that that I know that people are going to want to buy pictures of their children, but at the same time, I'm also privileged to be given the reins to that by the parents, and I never take that for granted. I think it's really important. I've got to know, in a very small way over an hour and a half period, I've got to know lots of absolutely amazing children, and I'm a sucker for that because I love children. So it works well for me. And you are so right. The fact that the parents, that what this means to them is more than just a photograph. It's a memory of something that means that they'll keep forever, and they love to show to other people. And they love to, I'm sitting here now in my living room at home, and what have I got around me? I've got 1, 2, 3 pictures of my children, 2 of which I shot, the other of which was shot by a very famous photographic artist called Julia Fullerton Batten, who photographed my daughter and my wife together. And those are my favorite pictures in the world. And I can have any pictures of my children, because I shoot them myself, and those are my favorite images. So I'm one of them. So I know what it feels like.
Yeah. Okay, so Richard, before I forget, mate, absolutely brilliant. I kind of well done. I mean, from taking such a simple idea and making it such an amazing experience for so many parents and things. Really, I think it's brilliant. And the idea and the quality of the production of the book, and actually even just one copy for the monarch, one for the prime minister, and one for the lord mayor is genius in its own right, I believe.
It's fun.
Really, really, really is, and things really. How many kids are limited to the book? Is it, do you keep it really tight now?
Really tight, really tight. I mean, I've never had more than 130 in the book. It's got so big now that this year my target is 150. But I tend to have a target which I purposely kind of, I know it sounds funny in a business sense, but I purposely don't want to hit it. If you know what I mean. So what I'll do is I'll target 150. So we'll end up doing about 145, 140 or something. But we have we have 1,000 applicants a year now, so we have such choice. It's phenomenal, and that's what makes it fantastic. We have so many options available to us. But I don't want to kill the golden goose. This isn't a production line. It's not about pumping out tons and tons of photographs for everybody. It's not about choosing everybody. It needs to be exclusive, and it's important from that point of view. So on average, around about 120 to 150 will be the amount of successful applicants we have per year, and that keeps it tight enough for us to make sure we've got a goodly number in there, but at the same time wide enough for us to have a good number in there, but tight enough for it to still maintain that exclusivity, which is really important to me.
And everybody who goes through the photography experience with you is guaranteed to be in that book, yes?
100%.
100%.
If we haven't got the picture, then we shouldn't be doing the photographs, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
If we're not good enough, we shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. Do you choose the image, or does the client choose the image for the book?
I choose the images. Again, one of the things that's very, very important for people out there, and if you read my books, you'll hear this a lot. Make sure that you control the shoot and you control the client. So what I say to them before they get, there's certain times, by the way, you need to talk to the client about what opportunities they have. Certain times you want to talk to them about price. Certain times you want to talk to them about opportunities. Times within the process. So just after the shoot, for instance, we sit them down and we give them a full rundown of exactly what's going to be available to them. We even give them a price list and the prices and so on and everything, and we put them in for a viewing at that point. And one of the things that I tell them at that point is that at the viewing you'll see 40 images, and we can talk about the shot that will be used in the book, but you will not be told which image is chosen for the book. I choose the image for the book. We keep it secret until the book comes out. Now, sometimes they want to know and they want to know and they want to know, but I don't want them to know. I don't want them to know for several reasons, some of which are business reasons and some of which are creative reasons. The main reason from a creative point of view is that I want the freedom to be able to choose the images in relation to what other shots are in the book. So I might shoot a great shot of a child on Tower Bridge that I think is going to be a great image, but then 6 months later I shoot a similar shot of 2 amazing albino beautiful black boys that happen to be on their scooters and sticking one leg out, and a pigeon happens to fly over their head at that time. So that's a better shot, and it's going to be perfect for my book, and it's going to look absolutely perfect. So I will choose that image, which means I can't use the other image. Now, if I've told the client that that's the image that's going to be used, then I've got this awful process of going back to them and changing it around. So that's a very long-winded way of explaining why it's not possible for me to tell them. But the other reason is that I genuinely want it to be fun, to be secret, to be something that they're not sure about and not. They can't wait
to see the book as well, isn't it? To see which of their images is in it.
And there is a third reason, which is fascinating, which is that in the viewing, clients will often say, well, I want that print for my wall, but maybe that one will be the one that's in the book. And if it's the one that's in the book, then I don't really want it for my wall. Now, that bothers me because they're making a choice based on the wrong thing. And interestingly, what they don't know, and if they say that during the viewing, which they sometimes do, I explain to them that there's 50-50 on this. There's another kind of client. There's another kind of client that will go, I want that picture for my wall, but I only want it if it's in the book. So how can I decide if I want it or not? And both of those different people, although they want the opposite thing, they both think that in their world that that's the only logic that's real.
Yeah,
that's them. So trying to explain that to people is too complicated, basically. So if I say I won't be telling you what it is, then the question doesn't come up and it's not an issue.
Yeah. Thank you, Richard. Absolutely magic, mate. I'm sure you'll be back. And one of these days we are going to get really drunk together. You realise that, don't you?
That would be a very big night, I have to say. We did not, but yeah, with you and I talking together, we'll be up until the dawn.
Yeah, I think if we, like you were saying when we were chatting before we got going today, you're like, we should have recorded this. It was like, yeah, but it wouldn't stop.
Yeah, exactly.
It can only be live, where one of us needs to go to the loo and they can talk to each other behind their back or whatever it is. You
got it.
Richard, I think I'm in man love, and we'll speak soon. We'll speak very soon. Good luck with everything, and thanks for sharing the Children of London with us. I can't wait to see the catch up.
Pleasure. I hope that people get something from it and enjoy the talk and enjoy it. And please contact me if you want to ask me any questions. Then I'm very happy to answer it. And go and have a look at the books. I think the books, my books I've written, I think they're great. But I would say that, wouldn't I?
Brilliant. Thanks, mate. Take care of yourself.
See you soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye.